I was about 4 years old the first time I heard it, at least, that's what I remember. A man's voice began talking to me from my ear while I played in my room with my toys. And it sounded like it knew the names of every one of my figures. Not only the ones that came from cartoons, but also the names I gave to those plain, generic toys, things without shapes, without personality. The voice told me what to do. It told me how to play, what games to choose. It even warned me when my mom was about to come into my room. But it always did it in a way that felt friendly, not threatening. I was afraid to tell my mother. When I was a child, my mother frightened me for a lot of reasons. She was extremely religious and controlled what we watched on television, what comics we read, and the games we played. And it wasn't only about me or my cousin, she controlled what my father did too. My cousin was a few months younger than me. His parents died, and he lived with us starting when he was 1 year old. I kept hearing that man's voice in my room every day. Sometimes it didn't scare me. Sometimes it even made me feel less alone. But I didn't want my mom to hear it. Whenever she came into my room, he would go quiet, as if he believed she might notice. As I grew older, and after I started learning about it from horror movies I watched secretly with my cousin, I began to understand that maybe it came from the cross my mother kept. And if that was the case, maybe the voice in my room wasn't something good for me. Still, it didn't really frighten me, until that one night. A few days after I turned 8, something happened. When I went to bed, the voice kept talking even after I finished my homework. That was unusual, because it never spoke when I was ready to sleep, until that night. It talked as if it wasn't even talking to me, like it was speaking to someone else. I lay there trying to ignore it, until I fell asleep. The voice crying woke me a few hours later. It was the first time I felt real fear. My first reaction was to run to my parents' room. But before I reached the hallway, I heard my mother's voice in the kitchen. I went downstairs to her. With the light off, I saw her silhouette in her nightgown moving around the kitchen. She looked at me and came closer, asking what was wrong. I told her everything. At first she tried to comfort me, but at some point her comfort turned into scolding, into reproaches and warnings. She told me not to listen to that voice anymore. When I heard it, I was supposed to leave my room and go to her. She said I needed to fix what was happening in my head, that it was all just part of a child's imagination. I remember very clearly the next Saturday. She woke me up early, before dawn. She asked us to be quiet. We left the house and the air still felt like morning breeze. There wasn't much movement, just 2 or 3 older people sweeping the sidewalks in front of their houses. We walked out toward the outskirts of my neighborhood, passing a small creek that separated our side from the other one, the poorer side with small houses made of unusual materials. A little farther on, we reached a house covered in decorations and plants in the entire yard. Even today, I've never seen a house like it. An elderly woman brought us inside and then my mother went with her to a room next door. I waited in the living room. In the armchair next to me, a huge young man was snoring loudly. He was fat, so fat I felt like he was 2 meters tall, at least that's how I estimated it. Half his legs seemed to spill out of the armchair. I watched him as if hypnotized, terrified that at any moment he would wake up and I'd be sitting beside him. In those thoughts, I was startled when the woman returned. She gave me tea that tasted strange, but not unpleasant. I saw flowers floating in it. When I finished it, we left the house. We went back. My father still hadn't gotten up. My cousin was in the living room watching cartoons. He asked where we had gone. My mother said we had gone out for breakfast. And I understood then that what we did was some kind of secret. After that, I didn't hear the man's voice again. My mom still kept giving me tea from time to time. As I got to puberty, when I remembered all of it, I began to understand that she was trying to protect me. Over time, though, I forgot why she started giving it to me in the first place. The voice faded into something blurry, like it had only been a dream. My mother died last January, after an illness that ate away at her at an unbelievable speed. She lost a lot of her hair and became abnormally thin. Seeing her like that was painful and terrifying. I wanted to erase it completely from my memory, but I couldn't. With that image, those nights began to come, her appearing in the house. She would show up in the living room, walking through the kitchen, always appearing for only a few seconds at a time. We could see her clearly, and then she would fade. Almost every time, there was a faint smile on her face, but her eyes were angry, as if she were trying to prove she was fine, while also scolding us, the way she always did. Maybe it was because she was so strict, even after leaving her body, even after leaving this life. That was what I wanted to believe. Months after her death, my father took my cousin and me out to eat. He seemed nervous, and my cousin looked anxious too. I could tell they were going to tell us something. They did. My father had mental health problems since he was very young, soon after he married my mother and when I was born. They had seen a specialist, a friend of my mother, who prescribed pills to keep his issues under control. When my mother died, my father was devastated. He didn't go to his appointment, as he should have, to pick up the medication from the doctor. Without my mother's constant pressure, he finally decided to change. He went to a psychiatrist, a man he'd known for years, and told him what had been happening to him. My father didn't go into details, but he told us the doctor asked him to stop taking those medications immediately. That's when the voice in the house returned. My father said it, and I froze. It turned out my cousin was also drinking something similar to the tea I had been given. When my father heard that, and when my cousin told him they needed to get it again now that my mother was gone, the coincidences started lining up. We'd gone out to eat because they wanted to ask me if something similar was happening to me. For some reason, they wanted that conversation away from the house. And that's when we understood. All three of us, had been hearing those voices there. My cousin, maybe in a more terrifying way than the others, and the three of us were treated by the people who were trusted through my mother. Months after my mother's death, once we stopped drinking the tea and the pills, the voices came back. That was also when we started seeing my mother appearing in the house again. Before that conversation, I had been convinced she appeared to take care of us, to show us we were okay. But after that, I started doubting it. The angry look in her eyes began to feel far more threatening. I want someone to help us because we're all confused. After the pain of losing her, we began to remember those strange details about my mother, how she controlled us, how she scared us. It's hard to look at a person who is no longer alive, but even harder to know she's still in the house. Deep down, we keep behaving the same way we did when she was alive. The voices are getting clearer all the time. I don't know if they're from some kind of evil being, or a spirit that just wants to tell us something, or maybe we're only losing our minds. That's exactly what we're trying to figure out now. Thank you for reading my story.